And now let's give you some news on the G20 summit that's being hosted by South Africa. Now, world leaders attending the G20 Leaders Summit there have adopted a declaration addressing global challenges despite opposition from the United States. The move broke the protocol as declarations are typically adopted at the end of G20 summits and are signed by all the member states. According to the South African presidency spokesperson, the declaration, which was drafted without inputs from the US, can't be renegotiated, reflecting strains between Pretoria and US President Donald Trump's administration, which boycotted the event. The US president ordered a full boycott of G20 Leaders Summit, citing claims that South Africa is pursuing racist and anti-white policies and the country's lawsuit against Israel at the International Court of Justice. Let's welcome Gautam Mukherjee, who's a senior journalist joining us live from New Delhi. Very warm welcome to you, Mr. Mukherjee, and thanks for joining us here on NewsX World. Now, do you think the signing of this declaration with the Trump's exclusion, is this a way for the other G20 participants to give back to Trump, particularly South Africa?
Well, if he's not going to come to the G20, what else can be done? You know, he has his reservations. He has not only not come himself, despite so many other heads of state being there, a lot of them European, the Germans are there, the Italians are there, the Japanese are there, the Singaporeans. So with all that, even Turkey's there. And with all that, if he won't come and he won't send his Secretary of State and he won't send any senior official whatsoever and is covered only by a consulate official already in Johannesburg, then there's nothing to do but to go without the United States.
Right. Mr. Mukherjee, now we've also seen Trump continuously raising attacks on South Africa. This time he's saying that the nation is preventing a smooth transfer of presidency to the United States next year, and of course coming after his charges of persecution of white minorities there. The US president is clearly irked by South Africa. Do we see any reaction from Ramaphosa's regime?
Well, you know, Ramaphosa is not objecting for it to be transferred to the United States and has said as much yesterday. What America is demanding is, you know, fairly unsubstantiated. And, you know, in terms of persecution of the white minority if South Africa chooses to go to the courts against Netanyahu, then that is their sovereign right. And you can't ask them to just do everything that America wants just because America wants it. That's not how relationships between countries are conducted. But I think the main reason is that you know, America has no real desire to head up the G20 because it involves them in a lot of obligations with 21 different countries, well, 20 countries and a 54-member African Union. So I don't think they want it. So they're raising obstacles.
Sure. Let's talk also about the progress that's been made on the climate talks, if any. It's definitely better from the previous summit, but clearly not enough has been done.
Well, climate summits so far have not achieved their purpose because people are not putting enough money behind them. The people who need to reform the most are the developed countries, and they point blank refuse to do so. America is the biggest polluter of the lot, and doesn't want to do anything about it. In fact, Trump is quite anti-climate moves. Um, Others, like India, are making a lot of pro-climate moves on their own, lot of green energy, a lot of efforts to work in rural areas with as little of a carbon footprint as possible. And considering 60% of our population lives in the rural areas, that is significant. Africa, by and large, is not responsible for much of a carbon footprint. So the main culprits are doing nothing about it. Even China has a very low carbon footprint, despite a lot of factories, a lot of manufacturing.
Right, request to stay on with us, Mr. Mukherjee. Let's give our viewers some more information on what the White House had to say. It says that hours after the G20 leaders adopted the declaration and the US accused Ramaphosa of not ensuring a smooth passage of the summit, that South Africa has in fact weaponized its G20 presidency to undermine the group's founding principles. The White House statement further mentioned that President Trump is looking forward to restoring legitimacy to the G20 in 2026, when the US will host the summit. Meanwhile, the South African officials in turn emphasized that all G20 members are equal and the body could not be paralyzed by the absence of one country. And now, Mr. Mukherjee, this is the statement that has been issued. Now, do you think that with Trump mounting pressure on South Africa and making accusations of persecution of white minorities there, the whole Make America Great Again campaigns, there are certain sections that are now believing that it's sliding towards the ideals of white supremacy? What's your take on that?
Well, what is likely to happen is that a lot of the G20 will not agree with these kind of premises of the Americans. And even if they do take over the presidency, which I think is in some doubt, despite the statement, it is likely that a lot of the others will stay away if they say strange things. I mean, America has set the precedent by staying away this time, and it may find that if it keeps making hostile comments about different people or different countries that are in the G20, that they may stay away. And it might be very difficult, you know, in a gathering. This isn't the G7, which is fairly Europe and America centric. It is a lot of countries from a lot of continents and different parts of the world. And currently they represent most of the economic output of the world, along with BRICS. And to try and bully them, as America is attempting to do, may not work in their favor, and they may not be able to bring some leadership to it, because a lot of people will simply not agree.
Right now, particularly, let's talk about the declaration. There are concerns that are being raised about the language of the declaration, and that the language was used to accommodate the conservative participants there, particularly when gender and sustainable development is concerned.
Well, I don't know who's raised the objections, but otherwise, these issues are very important to the global South. They're also important in general to the rest of the G20, and gender issues are important. How can you not have them?
All right. Thank you, Gautam Mukherjee, for joining us here on NewsX World and sharing your insights and opinion with us on the G20 summit. With that, viewers, let's now shift our focus. We have now some more news coming from South Africa, where a South African president has congratulated UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres after the COP30 climate deal was adopted in Brazil. The agreement aims to boost funding for poorer nations struggling with global warming, but makes no mention of fossil fuels. World leaders sought to show unity on climate action, even as the United States declined to send an official delegation. Let's in fact listen to what the South African president had to say.
I now want to call, as you see me hesitate, I just had a whisper in my ear from the Secretary General of the United Nations, who has just told me that the main decision of the COP30 has just been approved. So the Secretary General is understandably very happy.
Now, viewers, the COP30 agreement comes amid the ongoing G20 summit, where global leaders are discussing economic and environmental priorities. And moving on, viewers, we have some news now from Nigeria.